Welcome in, everyone. We are on episode 86 of the Battlecast podcast. I'm your host, Caleb Peng, joined by my co-host, Speedy Chief 2, and our very special guest, PvPoke, a.k.a. Matthew, a.k.a. Kakuna Matata, a.k.a. Empoleon Dynamite. A lot of names. Am I missing any names?
I think that covers the
Okay.
main ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some
What's
secret
your
names.
I know
that
you played Dungeons and Dragons sometimes, right? With the crew.
I do.
What's your name in Dungeons and Dragons? Like your character name?
I am the dungeon master, so I do
Oh,
not have a character.
okay.
But I did play in an adventure with Not Rob, and I was
Mhm.
Gwyn, the dwarf barbarian, after
Oh, nice.
Penguin.
Okay.
Like
Oh, I see
I
what you
made
did
him an
there.
ice barbarian
I
after.
like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Oh, welcome back. This is our first ever returning Battlecast podcast guest. And fun fact, I went back to the first time we had you on, and it was, I think, like it was. I have it on my phone because episode 11. So we're on episode
Wow.
86, which is more than 85 weeks later because we took some weeks off here or there. But the last year I had you on March 1st, 2021, over 2 years ago. Time
Holy
flies.
cow. I can't even remember what was happening then.
Well,
Right?
I did listen back to some of the podcasts too. So, but I think it's good for us to do like a little refresher for anyone that for some reason, if they don't know who you are, feel free to do like a little brief introduction if you like about who you are, uh, how you're a part of this community and anything else you want to share to start it off.
Sure. So I'm Matthew, and I run a website called PvPoke.com, which is a simulation resource for Pokemon Go PvP. And it has battle simulator rankings, and I participate a lot on Twitter, answering rather, sometimes asking, but mostly answering PvP questions. And yeah, that's how I met both of you is, um, doing tournaments and going to in-person events and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
it's been great. It's been a while and a lot has changed. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm personally super excited by like the play Pokemon developments and stuff, and the amazing job and opportunities you guys have gotten to really just take that to the next level.
Thank you. Thank you. You're always very kind too with your
Yes.
compliments whenever we're commentating too. So I do appreciate all that, especially given how much you've impacted the community too. I was gonna say so. Oh yeah, so last time in March 1st, 2021, we talked a little bit about how we met too, mostly through a PvP Discord, and then did we only meet in person once ever?
I
Was that?
think so. I
Yeah,
think
it's Go Fest, right?
Go
This past
Fest
year.
was the first time
Mhm.
we met.
Wow,
Yeah.
I feel like we've known each other for so long, but it's funny. Well, COVID also like happened too, so
Yeah.
it was a little bit harder to meet people. But yeah, it's interesting. But I'm curious how the two of you like first interacted or met, or virtually
Okay.
met.
Well, Kakuna always gives such gracious compliments. I just want to say the day that PvPoke followed me on Twitter was a huge day in my life. I was so
Oh my
excited.
goodness.
I was so thrilled. I like showed all of Florida chat. I was like, oh my God, Kek followed me. And then Casey was like, I love Kek. And then Katina was like, I love Kek. And we're like, we're all love Kek, right? Kek short for Kakuna, obviously. But no, PvPoke, I'm trying to remember our first couple of conversations. I think it was kind of like website feedback is I think how I slid into your DMs. I can't recall exactly.
Mm.
Probably that would have been, let's see, um, probably season 3 of Self? Does that
Uh-huh.
sound right?
It does. Yeah. And just for
Because
reference as well, I actually looked it up while we were talking about it. The last time CAC was on the Battle Cats, Fletchling Community Day had just happened. And
Oh my
Shadow
goodness.
Articuno was Giovanni's Shadow Legendary.
Yeah.
wow,
Wow.
I hope we had a good idea of how good Talonflame was going to be. That
That
was a big
was
one.
yeah, the first ever time we had a 5-turn fast move, right?
Oh.
Was Flushing Community. That was when they introduced Incinerate, right?
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, actually, Volt Switch, if I remember correctly, was originally a 5-turn move, and then they
Oh,
made it
okay.
into a 4-turn move. And then
Wow,
when
that's
Incinerate happened, they made it
Mm,
the only 5-turn move.
wait. How?
gotcha.
Wait, when was Volt Switch 5 term? Like early PvP or like?
Early,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
I think when they buffed it, I want to say that was season 3 of GBL.
Mhm.
I remember like at least as early as whenever Give Lancel was a thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Back then, I was like, I didn't even understand turns back then. Like, I wouldn't have
Yeah.
even known the difference between a 5 turn move and like a 3 turn move. I was just be
Yeah.
like,
For a long while, I thought both Razor Leaf and Charm were 3-turn moves. And I was like, wait, why is Razor Leaf like a little bit faster? It's doing so much more damage. Okay, it's a 2-turn.
yeah, because they both hit hard, right? So that makes
Yes.
sense. That makes sense. Um, but wow, yeah, it's been I feel like it wasn't that long ago since we had you on this podcast because I like I remember it so clearly, and I also re-listened to some of it, so I really remember it clearly because I was
Ooh,
listening to
you
it like a few
you
hours
did
ago.
more homework than I did.
No,
Yeah.
it's
I
like,
have
hey,
no
look,
idea what
you
Kakuna,
don't
happened.
have to
same.
do any homework. You just have to be on here, right? You did plenty of work for us. Um, but I was listening back on that, and it was like me and Zayaka were talking about so many different things, and like the globalization of Pokemon Go PP. And I remember Zayak saying like, "Oh, like it'd be cool to see how a lot of these players from like Asia, especially like Japan and Korea, compete against the rest of the world too." And this is before any official Play Pokemon Championship Series circuit, over a year before actually. And it's funny now because a couple years later, what 2 years later, we have these official tournaments, and what second place was from Korea, third place from Japan. Like we saw a lot of really high level competition too. So I'm
Yes.
curious about your thoughts on like how PvP has really shifted since 2 years ago, and
Oh
the
my
direction it's
gosh.
going. Yeah, like
Like
what are your
Yeah.
thoughts in
In
general?
five words or less.
Yeah, or you could throw in 5,000 words. We got time today.
Yeah. We got
Yeah.
time.
yeah, I don't know if shift is even the right word. Like just a complete um just launch in a totally, big direction that I don't know any of us could have seen coming.
Mhm.
From the let's see, 2019 was that World Invitational, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Mhm.
2 years after that, and then getting our first, play Pokemon circuit, and just having that. There were some growing pains, of course, but I think that turned out really well, and super glad to see that they committed to another season, and I hope this only grows from here. So,
Mhm.
um, like we've been through some ups and downs in PvP, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And just seeing seeing it up on the big stage, having these big events where all of us can come together and meet up. I think I'm trying to remember. Speedy, did I meet you?
Indianapolis.
Indianapolis. That was the first time. Okay, and then we saw
Mm,
each other again in Seattle.
Yes. Correct.
So
gotcha.
Yeah.
having those in-person events and big PvP tournaments, like I didn't compete, but just spectating that, sitting in the crowd, hearing the reactions, so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I I wanted to say, like, before the pandemic really came in 2020 January, we had the Orlando mega tournament, and I remember Sylph had plotted out 3 or 4 more of these mega tournaments. Then they became battle towers. That was the official terminology, and we were just ramping up. From a grassroots perspective, we were just really ready to go. And then the Go Battle League was actually launching at the end of January that year, so it's kind of like it seemed like a launching point, like a takeoff point for Pokemon Go PvP. And then, of course, by March, everyone was quarantined inside, and that stayed that way for about a couple of years. So I definitely felt like we were in a good position to see this exponential growth, but it never really panned out that way. But from your perspective, Kakuna, looking at how things have grown ever since Frankfurt, from last April going to now goes in our first official full season in the Play Pokemon circuit. And this is kind of related to Caleb's question as well. Do you see us like taking off again? Do you see that launch pad coming back?
ooh, that is a really good question. I think in some ways, obviously pandemic really stifled in-person play, self tournaments, those battle towers. In other ways, I think, being home all the time and having, needing something to do, and for some people, battling was that thing.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
I think it was both, um, you know, uh, trying to find a silver lining in there a little bit of, um, I think having that couple of years of the scene kind of developing and becoming more competitive and figuring out what a tournament structure might look like, because we had
Hmm.
all sorts of grassroots tournaments over that span, things like Aero Draft League and of course GBLA, um,
Let's go.
which I think really paved the way for the highest levels of competition. So um, it was a tough journey, an interesting journey, but um, I think that oof, I hope for sure that having Go on the big stage would only attract more people around it.
Hmm.
Even watching at Indy, like there would be people from VGC and the training card game who would walk by and kind of stop and watch, and they would end up watching for a little longer than they maybe anticipated, and that was
Yes.
cool to see. And um, I think I'm optimistic in
Hmm.
part because I know there's some really awesome people involved in um, uh, play Pokemon, and including yourselves, who will help really make Go shine on the stage. But yeah, I'm optimistic that another wave will come, so to speak. I do
Hmm.
think some part of that's going to have to be Niantic, right? Of um, this is a really um, exhausted conversation in the
Hmm.
PvP community of lowering the barriers for entry, providing more resources to teach people how to play, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
Which do you have any thoughts on that? Of like,
Well,
what are
it
some ways
comes.
that that Niantic could bring in some of the more core players?
Well, it comes back to like investing in the game, right? Investing more into the PvP functionality. And I feel like some of the community days have helped with that, giving Pokemon that benefit from a community day attack with, in terms of PvP. That's been helpful. But at the same time, I agree with you, Kakuna. I'd love to see more support from Niantic on converting more of the PvE players
Mhm.
over to PvP
Yeah, we always say this too on the podcast. We're like, if anyone from Niantic's listening,
all the time.
just no need to credit us, but just this is our thoughts, right? And now you hear some of the thoughts from PvPoke, the creator himself too. So definitely a good
Yeah.
one to incorporate. And you touched upon a lot of really great points here too. I'll backtrack a little bit. I think one great thing from that happened with the pandemic, we're definitely reaching that kind of peak, right? We're getting these mega tournaments. Like I remember they had like these battle towers for Sylph and these grassroots tournaments around the safari zones, even, right? Like the Philadelphia one and like St. Louis. I was like, I'm going to all of these, right? I need to go to these battle towers to stay competitive in Sylph, but also like they're great safari zone events, so they're going to tie all into it. Um, now that I think about it, I feel like if there was some type of planning around that, like collaboration between Niantic and like TBCI, that could be really cool too, right? Like, hey, the first 2 days we got we got the tournament on the Sunday after after the tournament's over. There's a safari zone, right? And people can go to that, right? So you tie it in, tie those events. It's kind of like win-win, right? You get participation in both, or a lot of people, even if let's say one person, like your friends like to PvP and you don't, you can still spectate for them, and then like you could play the safari zone together. So I think those are potentially great ways, but we do need some collaborative efforts from Niantic too in that regard. Uh, but yeah, so you said you went to Indianapolis regional too. Are there any plans to go to any for the upcoming season?
Ooh,
or the current season, I should say, and any plans to compete as well? Because I know you're quite the competitor. You still, I do peep your factions records once in a while too. I know you still do some PvP and competitive PvP on the side too that maybe people don't realize.
I do have a competitive streak. Um, we'll see what the season has in store. I
Mhm.
do hope to make Milwaukee
Okay.
and hopefully NAIC,
Oh,
wherever that ends up
fantastic.
being. So that'll be pretty cool.
Hypothetically speaking, if you were to win or win one of these regionals or qualify for world championships, would you attend worlds in Japan? Or even if you don't, are you planning on attending worlds in Japan? Is that
Oh
in the
goodness.
works?
Um, I think the possibility of winning a regional is just too far out. I can't say how that
Okay.
would happen, but it would definitely be cool to go to Worlds. I am have been thinking about going to Japan for a
Mhm.
little bit, and it would be a fun excuse to go. We'll see if that lines up this year. Um, but yeah, it would be pretty fun.
Okay, awesome. I don't know if have you two ever battled before? Because I remember when I first battled Matthew, I was like, I think I even told my friend Palmer's up. Dude, I'm about to face PvPoke. Like, I'm just imagining, I'm facing like the machine here, right? Like, it's just
Yeah,
like I feel
the
like
man
I'm Neo
himself.
facing the Matrix, right? I'm like he's gonna
No,
know everything's gonna come. Like, I don't know, like, and back then I definitely didn't know my entry counts, right? I definitely wasn't counting. I like for me like ignorance was bliss. Like I wasn't as frustrated from some of the inconsistencies in mechanics back in the day because I didn't know the mechanics to start off, so I was just like, well, what's a sneak? like, like my
no,
friends were like, you
I
keep
know
denying me. I was
you.
like, I don't know what I'm doing.
You definitely wiped the floor with me and a lot of those
Oh, that
Discord
it
tournaments.
wasn't as one sided. I remember we mentioned last time too. I think like I was losing to like single move like non legacy like Raichu and like single move like Earthquake Nidoqueen Queen and stuff. It was. I remember
Nice.
I faced you once in a Sylph Cup and I completely redid my team after I faced you. I was like, dude, I'm getting destroyed here. What's going on?
Oh no. I hope you got some more wins after that.
Uh, yes, I did. It was a helpful change. It's like if I got like I just joined the NBA and got like dunked on, right? On my like first game, I'm like, oh, I was never had my life. Like I got to change this. But yeah, what about you two? Have you two ever faced?
Have we battled Kakuna? I don't.
Um, I'm trying to think. I I don't know that we've ever battled in like a ranked,
Yeah,
um, competitive setting.
Oh,
yeah. I don't believe we have either. I'll have to look back at my Sylph card to see, but I don't think we've ever clashed swords, so to speak.
Yeah.
well, Speedy, are you going to Milwaukee Regionals to
Right?
compete? Because everyone
Oh.
Hey,
keeps asking you to compete too, so this might be the perfect
I'll
opportunity.
I'll tell you what. You said you were intimidated years back when you paired against Kakuna. I'd still be intimidated right now.
Would your attack drop,
So
Speedy?
yes, Kakuna used intimidate. It's super effective.
Speaking of
Uh,
the Japanese and Asian competitors, though, I think we have OCIC coming up, don't we?
yes,
Yes.
we do. Yeah. So, fun fact too. So you don't. I probably didn't tell you this yet. Um, we're recording this a few days in advance, but this episode will be dropping on Wednesday of the following week. So
Hmm.
for those listening, Wednesday of today, I guess. But anyway,
Yeah.
so the week of OCIC. So it will be our
Ooh.
first ever, like I guess like casted uh play Pokemon tournaments. So and first ever international for Oceania. So it'll be quite exciting too. Yeah, are you going to Australia by chance? Because
Oh
Are you going?
gosh. I wish, because I am lucky friends with Mr. PvP Steve, and
yes,
that needs to happen some way, somehow.
yes.
Good
Well,
day,
yeah.
battlers.
I mean,
Love
it's
him.
Welcome
not
in.
too late, I guess, to hop on a plane at this point. It might be too late if you're actually doing this on the time the episode
Uh,
drops, but
yeah, true.
yeah, that'll definitely be an interesting one too. I'm not sure how OCIC goes for VGC and TCG. My guess is it probably won't be as highly attended as some of the other ones, just because it's hard to get to. but it is cool to have international for that side of the world as well. And very curious to see how the strategies unfold, because
Yeah.
I feel like all of us are like, oh yeah, this is going to be meta. Like there's going to be Gunner, Stunfisk, Lantern, Noctowl, Trevenant. But then you got people winning like tournaments with like Shadow Mawwow and like you got like random Dunsparce sprinkled in.
Mhm.
You know, it's just like there's always
Yeah.
something like a Shadow Charizard. Like even though there's like meta, there's always like something that sneaks through that like no one anticipates like every tournament, which is always super interesting to me.
Yeah. I remember, I think it was Sylph season 3, I believe. I actually joined a tournament that was hosted in England. And I was like, yeah, just join this random cup. It's a remote tournament, 48-hour rounds. It'll be fine. And I noticed that their play style and their picks, even though we're in the same meta, they were wildly different. And I really do sincerely feel that when you look at places like Asia with the players that qualified for Worlds and finished really strongly, if we look down even to Australia and New Zealand, content creators like Yusei Faro, he brings like Ferrothorn and Dedenne on his teams. He makes like these wacky teams and he still wins in Go Battle League. I'm not sure how he does it. So I agree with you, Caleb. I think we're going to see some very interesting things at OCIC.
Yeah,
For
the
sure.
Europeans love that Shadow Sableye Dunsparce combo.
They do.
And
They do.
even GBL, I'd be facing. I was like, oh, here's the European.
Yep.
It's rubbing off on some people in North America for sure. Um, but yeah, what are your thoughts on the current meta? Because I think I did
Ooh.
see a comment, a few tweets from you recently about, because a lot of people complain about Trevenant Lantern Trevenant Lantern and Noctowl.
Yeah.
But you also tweeted out your opinion on this. You're like, yeah, there's like these core like 3 or 4 Pokemon, but there's always like the flex picks on that 5th and 6th slot can really make things
Mhm.
interesting. Is am I quoting correctly there?
Yeah, there's been a lot of discussion recently about how people feel about the current meta and
Mhm.
uh, usually comparing it to, oh, would you rather have, Walrein Nidoqueen back?
Yeah.
And it's been a conversation. It's been a conversation. Kind of a be careful what you wish for sort of thing.
Agreed.
Yes.
Agreed.
Yes. I for one personally was not for the Walrein nerf, but it was less so about because what I was mostly scared of, I didn't expect the lantern thing, because I guess no one really even knew it was going to get surf. But I was thinking, if you nerf Walrein, that's one less thing to counter Trevenant. And Trevenant's much harder to nerf because it's got Shadow Claw, Shadow Ball that impacts too many things, and Sea Bomb's just not a great move already, right?
Mm.
So I guess they could make that worse, but then at that point you're throwing like Shadow Balls at Azu instead of Sea Bomb. That's just like a weird feeling too.
Yeah.
Um, but that was my greatest fear, of course. And then I blame Stark for this one because he popularized Noctowl, and then
Oh
now
no.
he's. I blame Stark for a lot of things. He's a villain in my book, and
Fun
that only
fact.
reinforces that. Yeah.
Fun fact.
Uh-huh.
Stark's Noctowl was the only Noctowl in the top 8 at Baltimore.
Dude, that's wild. These
It's
days, it's
him.
like that's all it is. Yeah,
It's him. He's
it's him.
him. Stark is him.
Yeah, yeah. He inspired Hot Pocket, and then after that,
It's
it's
all
just
downhill.
been down. And
He's
then
got
they
that
buffed
he's got
it.
that
They
dog in
buffed
him.
it. Yeah,
Or that owl in him, whatever it is.
exactly, exactly. He's a controversial figure. I
He
will say
is.
that. I
So
will say
Kakuna,
that.
which side do you stand on? You said careful what you wish for, and I do resonate with that. Oh, so what do you think about the current meta?
I I think I personally preferred the Walrein meta, and I did uh, after seeing that discussion go back, and I remembered posting some thoughts after coming back from Indy of
Yeah.
like, yeah, okay, people were using a lot of the same Pokemon, but the actual games were just always so dynamic, and
Hmm.
anything could happen at any moment. With the energy building of
Mhm.
Sableye, of Valrein, of like Trevenant. These are all really flexible Pokemon. Hardly, I wouldn't say hardly any RPS it was there, but a lot of potential to outplay. Whereas I feel like that's a little less. Um, I feel that as I posted that I think the current meta emphasizes more um, predictions and
Mhm.
you know okay, they led this last time, what should I lead this time, and stuff that doesn't translate as well onto the screen,
Mhm.
but are still important, skills for show 6, bring 3.
So I'm gonna put you on the hot seat some more.
Ooh, all right.
If it were up to you, right? And again, I don't know if anyone from Niantic listen to this, but if it were up to you, what would you do for like maybe the next GBL update or next season update, whatever, move sets to what would you like to see? How would you balance it, I guess, right?
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
The challenge here is it's really hard to um I see
Yes, we
Speedy
taking
beginning to
notes.
write some
I'm
things
taking
down.
notes. I'm taking notes over here.
It's really hard to take back any buffs, especially move additions. So we're
Yes.
kind of stuck with Surf Lantern. We're stuck with um let's see what else.
Shadow Ball Noctowl.
Shadow Ball Noctowl. Was the wing attack buff too much?
Yeah.
Maybe. Um and so if I were to try and core break what's happening right now with Metacham, Stunfisk, Lantern, and Trevenant, or sorry, there's a Noctowl somewhere in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Lantern knocked out Trevenant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
You could also introduce moves to Pokemon that don't currently learn it,
That's
right?
true. That's true.
Yeah.
I saw this suggestion somewhere. I think you could buff Rollout back to its
Yeah.
um, increased damage. Yeah.
Dunsparce users really gonna rejoice
Gonna
there.
go off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, what else?
I wouldn't mind seeing a
If
Miltank meta
yeah,
because that
uh,
second charge move could be anything, and
True.
could really give you some coverage.
I can't remember if it learns it or not, but something like Magical Leaf, Abomasnow,
Oh.
or something, because the Powder Snow gets resisted by
Mhm,
Azumarill, by Lantern.
Mhm.
mhm.
If you had a more neutral or energy gaining, either a grass move or a more neutral move, like not Shadow Claw, but something like
Yeah.
giving
Yeah.
Abomasnow some more play
It
could be part of
it
that.
does learn. It does learn Magical Leaf,
Ooh,
by the way.
okay.
Wow. Okay, I like that. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I mean, the play into Noctowl is an interesting one too, because the Weather Ball's super effective, but your fast moves aren't doing anything, and you got the super effective wing attacks and sky attacks, right? So that's a fairly it's like not even a neutral match. It's like super effective versus super effective matchup, but it could be
Mhm.
pretty interesting too. And I'm sure it makes the Galarian Stunfisk matchup a little trickier too, because everyone's using Galarian Stunfisk these days. It's like why bring Registeel if Registeel's gonna blue seal Lantern, right?
Yeah.
So that gives a little more leeway to the Registeel as well. I
Yeah,
like
I
it.
feel like the one of the biggest misses in the current meta as well is the lack of safe switches. And I think you touched on this as well, Kakuna. You said it's really dependent on calling leads, calling team comps. Sableye has really fallen off. Lickitung is almost non-existent. It's
Mhm.
really hard to find a good safe switch because you've got knocked out Umbreon on the other side, right? To drop another metric on you here, I watched back the Orlando finals, and in the grand finals and the grand finals reset, Bosox and Zaburglar played 7 games. In those 7 games, both Sox soft won, one lead, and he hard won, one lead. And guess which game he won? Because he only won 1 out of 7. The game he won the hard lead.
Oh
Yeah.
So
goodness.
it's
He's a
tough.
dirty RPSer, is what you're saying, Speedy.
He got RPS to heck.
He did. He did.
uh,
I
I
do like that
usually like to
sometimes.
say play RPS games, win RPS prizes, but it seems to be unavoidable
Love it.
in the current meta.
Love it.
I like that. I like that. All right, cool. I like that potential change there too. Yeah, you're absolutely right too. Because the problem is now that Lantern has Surf, and like if you nerf Surf, you hit so many things. But it's just like Surf Lantern is. I've been using it. I don't. I can't remember who. Oh, it's Casey that plays Ultra League for your factions, right? Like, yo, if you don't have a 100% Lantern for Ultra League, like you got to build one. That thing is just
Oh
bonkers.
gosh.
Like it is too strong. Like it goes like pretty even against the Deoxys defense. It's like 2300
Mhm.
CP even when best buddied. It's kind of wild. Like one of the few things that you don't have to shield anything from Charizard. So, yeah, it just really, really strong, unfortunately. And yeah, who would have thought? Who would have thought? And buffing Ampharos was not the way, in my opinion. I don't know if you disagree with me on this or not. I know Butters
How could you?
is pushing it,
Come
but
on.
look, we got like what, like 3 tournaments left before this Bastion's safe in the clear, no transfer needed, right? Like I don't think anyone's winning with the Ampharos. ZY is really trying though. I will give him credit for
He
Yeah,
that.
is.
were you sweating at least a little bit?
Nah, I was okay. I was okay. Boat Jump's going to be a little bit weirder though, because it's much less people. I think they currently have like 36 people signed up, so he might have a good chance of winning that one. But there's a big difference
Ooh.
between qualifying for Worlds and getting second place and winning, right? Like it is winning a regionals and internationals a hard feat in itself. So, I would know about not winning. So,
I was gonna say
Aw.
yeah,
personal experience.
personal experience, man. It's not easy. So, but we'll see. I mean, Butters is convinced. Butters is convinced. He's I'm still waiting for him to show up on the stage as well, but maybe down the road. I was gonna ask you this too when we're talking about with the the Pokemon Company and play Pokemon stuff, with especially with Go. I feel like I might have asked you the last time around, but it's been 2 years, so I don't actually fully remember. Did you play any competitive VGC or TCG ever, or
Super
not?
casually,
Okay.
like occasional Smogon games, and
Okay,
that's
okay, gotcha.
about it.
Yeah, okay. So not in like any official like tournament capacity in the past.
No.
Okay. Good to know. And then I also saw that on PvPoke you also have a Terra Raid counters guide too now, right? And so definitely
Oh.
a big change since the last time we talked. Well, Scarlet and Violet was even out back then too. We want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've been playing a ton of Scarlet and Violet, really enjoying it, and I'm doing some raids, thinking of, hey, what would be good for this? And then I was like, oh, I could just make that. And
Hmm.
then I made it. So
Nice.
yeah, it's been a fun to keep up, and having little side projects, like side projects, I guess, like that, is always nice to keep things fresh. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I remember too, you were trying to do something with Unite back in the day. This was like over a year and a half ago, right? When
Yeah.
it was actually like 2 years ago. It was like Unite came out shortly after, like a few months after we recorded our last one too. Is that still a work in progress, or like it like is
Oh,
it is it
that
is it already published, or I haven't seen it
oh that
myself.
unfortunately is dead in the water.
Okay, no
Um,
worries.
yeah, still a good experience, and I
Hmm.
don't regret making it, but um, definitely underestimated the time and math it would take to keep that running. So
Yeah, Unite is very like dynamic too, so it's kind of hard to like. It's
Mhm.
not really like turn based either, so it gets like really weird to like. I don't even know how to wrap my head around the math to even for
Yeah.
starters.
Well, with some of your moves as well, like if you're within a certain radius, it does more damage than being
Mhm.
closer. So even if you try to map a single move's damage,
Yep.
it's the calc is all very
Well, there's
challenging.
crits and there's like attack weight
Yes.
stats and like all the items and the level of the items and the level of Pokemon. Yeah, I'd be
Yeah.
stressed thinking about it, but
It's intense.
yeah, the
yeah.
thankfully with the Terra thing, it's just like Pokemon type matchups,
Mhm.
and
Yes.
those probably won't change over the lifespan of Scarlet and Violet.
Yes.
One would
Yes.
think.
One would think indeed.
We'll see.
Yeah. I remember too back like 2 years ago. Was it 2 years ago? Maybe 1 year ago when like the sneaks and denials were a thing. Um I don't even know how you program that, right? Because like some do you have to program like occasional denials and sneaks back in PvPoke back in the day? Because nowadays, like, supposedly the fastest should always go through when they use charge room. But I'm just thinking from a programming standpoint, like how do you even address like the inconsistencies within a simulation, right?
That's getting flashbacks.
Oh
Yeah,
gosh.
yeah. Yeah, we're in a better place
So
these days, but I'm very curious about that too.
the story there is funny because I didn't put it into the Sims because I was like, okay, the moment I put this in there, it's gonna get fixed, and then I'm gonna have to take it out. And then it didn't get fixed, and it didn't get fixed, and it didn't get fixed. And like a few years later, eventually it got
Okay.
fixed.
Did you
Um,
ever end up putting it in there, or you held out? You held
I held
strong.
out the
Okay,
entire
okay.
time.
Good, good, good. Yeah. Because I know some people, they would try to use, especially for self disputes, they would try to use PvPoke to justify some of it. But the problem is
Mm,
like if there's not like guaranteed denials or sneaks and stuff, like it just you can't really go off of the simulation there, which is
mhm.
tough. But I mean that just it put you in a tough spot in general. But everyone else too relying on it, it's just like I don't like what are you supposed to do, right? In that situation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't believe I've seen some comments about should denials come back just to make things
Really?
more interesting.
What do you think on that?
No.
So what's the argument for denials to come back? So for those that don't know, a denial is essentially every time you use a charge move, your opponent is supposed to throw a fast move, right? Otherwise, you're just like throwing charge moves for free. It's a turn-based game. But back in the day, not even that far ago, like even like a few months ago to a year ago, there's a chance where you can throw your charge move and they don't get a single fast move through. You're essentially denying a potential fast move.
Mhm.
But yeah, what's the reason for people that want denials back? Were they just like better back when they had denials at the game? I guess.
Yes.
Yeah,
But
that's some personal preference here, I guess.
but
Yeah,
I'll try and I think there's two different arguments,
yeah.
and I'll try and represent them as well as I can. One is the thought that the game should be always deny instead of always sneak. And the thinking there is that um, if you're always denying, the game becomes more charge move oriented than fast move oriented.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Um, and then the second argument, some people saying they want random denial sometimes because um, I think the argument there is that matchups are too
Static.
static, yeah, static or determinate, and having something that potentially flips things around would
Hmm.
add more variability to that.
Hmm.
I disagree, but
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too. It's kind of like the RNG that we see sometimes in other Pokemon games. Like in TCG, they literally roll dice to determine the effectiveness of some attacks. And then when you look at VGC, I remember watching a match where Hurricane landed on an Azumarill, and when Azumarill was ready to throw the play rough and KO the Dragonite that threw the Hurricane, it got confused by the Hurricane and then it KO'd itself. It's like, my
Yeah.
goodness, that's like nail biting, right? It takes a lot of RNG, and that's something that people don't realize as well. There's a lot of RNG in Pokemon. It's
Hmm.
very like luck based, like it has to be very special for you to win
Maybe that's why they want
consistently.
the random denials. They want more
It could
RNG.
be.
Yeah. But
There's
I think it's
actually
it's frustrating on the receiving end, right? Back when
yes,
Omnis Wind or Ancient Power would give you a double stage boost
dude.
in attack and defense, like that was just like oh I got this in the bag and this Togekiss, double boost off of the Ancient Power, and then you're just like, wow,
Yeah.
I'm about to lose Metagross and Togekiss right now, right? It's
I,
just
I actually have a question for both of you. So
Mhm.
there's actually someone who is a close friend of ours who is actually in the always deny camp. Do
Wants
you know who
always
it is?
deny.
He wants always denies.
would
Oh,
that be
And
our Ampharos friend?
it would.
what?
Ah,
Butters wants always deny,
Yes. I'm
dude. What
calling him
is
out.
going on?
Two
Dude,
of
I can't
Butters wants
wait.
always
I gotta.
deny.
You gotta remind me if we have Butters on as a guest in the future for us to like grill him on this. What's the rationale for him wanting always deny? Is it
Dude,
because he
you
doesn't
gotta
like
ask
fast room
him.
pressure teams?
I can't get into his brain. You got to ask him. I don't know.
His brain's like a forest fire. I don't know if I
I
don't know if I want to enter that brain.
I mean, I think Kakuna explained it well, right? You want to shift the game to more charge move oriented
Yeah.
combat, and if you always get denied, it means you're always throwing on alignment. So instead of throwing 4 mud shots versus 3 snarls, you're actually throwing 5 mud shots every time, or 6 rather, 6. So you line up on turn 12, and then throwing your move. So I don't know. I mean, I just don't like it. I just don't like it. I don't understand it. I don't like it.
Yeah. Well, the always and now also really punishes slower fast moves, right? I feel like
Yes.
that as
they're
well.
in
Yes,
competition
big
already.
time.
Yeah, because Doombuck I think even mentioned it on Twitter or something after when he won Arlington. He's like, yeah, I personally like always I always go for like the 1 turn, 2 turn fast moves
Yep.
if possible for my
Yep.
Pokemon. I think his entire team was 1 turn or 2 turns. I don't even think he had a 3-turn Pokemon on his
So, yeah.
team. He had an Obscure, Frostlass. I don't know. But yeah, because even 3-turn
Yeah.
moves you could really like not even exploit, but like optimize your charge from timing.
Yeah.
Um,
Everything besides his Reggie was a 2-turn move.
yeah, and Reggie's 1 turn, right? So yeah, it's
Yep.
very easy to play around. Yeah, it's if you know your timings well, like you could play around 4-turn, 5-turn, even 3-turn moves pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
My personal thought is like if you know how to optimize your charge from timing, then like you don't need guaranteed denials, right? Like you can maximize quite a bit. And this is something I didn't know the last time we had Kakuna on. I didn't even know what that was. Even though optimized charge time was a thing, I didn't like I like didn't I didn't I was too lazy to do the research and figure it out until I did, and it was a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was a big reason to run Ember on K9, right?
Yes. Because you
Last
could actually
season.
Yes.
switch. It was much more fluid, right?
Yeah. I don't know if that's why Cindy ran it though, because she doesn't know optimized charge. Like she's my teammate, so I know this, but she didn't know optimized charge from timing until like at least a few months ago. So and when she won the regionals way before, I was like, "How are you this good and don't know optimized charge from timing?" I was like, but she was like, "I don't know, I just throw."
Yeah. I think it's like muscle memory, right? Like
Mhm.
any good athlete doesn't have to really think about what they're doing. They just kind of go through the motions and they
Yeah,
just nail it, you know.
yeah, no, definitely. Um, Yeah, because Ember Kanto Ninetales Golden Hada got it used as well
Mm-hmm.
in the second place too. We talked about this a little bit, Matthew, in our last podcast, but we're saying going back to the old meta versus the current Trev Noctowl Lantern meta. Even though Walrein and Trevnin were so common, Dancing Rob didn't have either of those on his team, and he won
Yes.
all of Worlds. So like that already
Mm-hmm.
shows. And I was saying like if you don't have either, if you don't have 2 out of like Lantern, Trevenant, or Knockout on your team in this current meta, like there's no way you win anything. I feel like there's almost
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know. Has there been a regionals winner that has won a regional since the Lantern update? I don't, or since a recent update, Wing Attack update. I don't think so. I don't think a single person has won one without at least 2 out of those 3 from any regional. But
It's an interesting
I'm
question.
trying to
yeah.
think.
Yeah, no, Berto
So
didn't.
Basics won Bilbao with Trevenant, Toxicroak, Tapu Fini, Lickitung, Altaria,
Yeah.
and Registeel.
Well, but that was
But
pre wing attack buff.
when was the
So
wing attack
post.
buff? Around
It was
which
Toronto, Stuttgart, and Brisbane. So that, yeah. I don't even know
really
where you're
the wing
getting your.
attack buff?
Yeah. Hmm.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it was after LAIC. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So that's one
Mm,
them.
I do think
it's
it's
tough.
funny that the first regional we saw had mirror teams in the finals, which
Hmm.
Oh,
were
Indianapolis.
yeah,
Yeah.
or no, in wait, was
Toronto.
that where was that?
Toronto and
Toronto?
yeah, they both
Yeah.
did.
Yes. Yes. Post patch. Yeah. The only difference was Power Punch Metacham versus
Psychic.
Psychic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. But yeah, that was a strong team. Magic Mason and Brown Baller, they both they were definitely onto something. I mean, they both played great, but they also just had like when you look at that team, you're just like, dude, what do I what do I run into this? That Umbreon was so
Yes.
strong too. There's like no charmers, no fairies. Like
Yes.
it was pretty wild. But I don't know. Out of in your opinion, Matthew, what would you run if you had a Shadow Alola Ninetales? Would you run the Powder Snow variant or would you run the Charm variant?
Ooh, I would lean towards Powder Snow
Okay.
at the moment. And I think, yeah, Powder Snow probably. Because going from neutral or resisted to neutral damage
Hmm.
against G-Fisk,
Yes.
um, then you're hitting super effective versus Trevenant versus Noctowl.
Yeah.
I feel like that's just too good to pass up.
Yeah. Okay. I like it. I like it. Yeah, Chief is on like almost every team too. I think it was what
Mm-hmm.
over 70% of the teams in Orlando, which is kind of bonkers. But it was
Yeah.
the number one highest usage Pokemon, even over Metacham, which
Mm-hmm.
I find surprising because almost every team has a fighting type and it's usually Metacham.
Yeah.
But
That's like another thing as well. I'd love to see more fighters besides just Medicham, because Medicham is just
Yeah,
dominating the
typing's
circuit.
so good.
It's so
What do you
good.
do? You had to like buff like Toxicroak, I feel like.
Annihilate.
Which is
Introduce.
oh what?
Annihilate.
Oh,
I was gonna
Annihilate?
say,
Yeah.
or introduce a new Pokemon.
Yeah. Or give like Buzzwole something good. I don't know what
Yeah, it's just.
Buzzwole needs coverage moves.
I mean, Medicham can just psychic all the other fighters, right? So you need something
Well,
different.
Buzzwole can lunge and keep it interesting, I think, if you don't learn the
True.
psychic. But
True.
yeah, the psychic Annihilate. What's Annihilate's typing? It's fighting Ghost?
It is, yeah.
Oh,
That
jeez.
would be like the antithesis of Medicham.
Well, the
It's
psychic
so
is still
rough.
super effective at least, so
Yeah,
you have some
that
play.
still hurts.
Yeah, that's
You
fair.
can't count out Metacham here. Yeah,
Shoot,
I don't
what a
know.
beast.
Yeah, I mean Metacham getting XL, just whenever they introduce XL, it's just like over.
Oh
I'm
man,
like,
I think that's one of the biggest mistakes the game has made.
well,
Oh,
yeah, do share more on that actually, out of curiosity.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
I
curious.
was pretty passionate leading up to the Go Beyond update that
Mhm.
Pokemon should not go above level 40. And I think at the time we weren't sure what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it just introduces a lot of problems, balancing problems, resource
Mhm.
problems.
Oh yes.
Um, yeah,
Power
for
creep
sure.
in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, things got super strong. I mean, yeah, because I think back then I think a lot of people figured there might be something beyond level 40, but we weren't sure if it like allowed you to power Pokemon, or it might be just be like, oh, just for like cosmetic, or like
Mhm.
you get a skin or something like that. But no, you got to power up to level 50 now, and I don't know. I feel like a few years from now, level 60 is around the corner. Luckily for Great League, that won't be a huge problem because like what does that implicate?
Uh,
Like a higher stat product Lickitung and like Wobbuffet's going to be kind of bonkers. Yeah. And Chansey too, actually, if you think about it. Yeah.
for Ultra
Yeah.
League, there are quite a few Pokemon that are hovering around like 2200, 2300. That could
Mm-hmm.
become
Noctowl.
interesting.
Yeah. Not. You should. I keep telling Speedy, so just run Pidgeot if you really want to do that. But also, I mean, Galarian Stunfisk right now is a hundo for Ultra League. Imagine like a higher stat product Galarian Stunfisk in Ultra League. That'd be kind of
Yeah,
wild.
or Umbreon.
Or
Oh
Umbreon, yeah, or Umbreon.
no.
Uh, Jelson's already mostly there, but yeah,
I
that's a good one.
I feel like one of the worst things that level 50 did was just really break the Stardust economy in the game as well.
Mhm.
Because I was actually looking at some Pokemon. You'll appreciate this, Caleb. But I was looking at some Pokemon to power up with my 14 million dust, and I was like, I have a rank 5 Ultra League Alolan Sandslash that I just TM'd, and I'd love to make it, but it's a Shadow, right?
Oh,
A
that's like
Shadow Alolan Sandslash.
500,000 at least.
It's 580,000 dust just to power it up, and then 60K more in order to double move it. And I was looking at the math right here, and if you catch, let's just say for example's sake, right? You catch Pokemon for 100 dust per, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you say, okay, well, I want to make this Sand Slash. Quick math: 6,403 catches to make one Pokemon for Ultra
Yeah.
League that you might not even want to play. Maybe you build it and you're like, you know what? It's way too weak to counter. There's too much rock. There's too much whatever. I don't want to play it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's 6,000 catches. And if I really grind out a spotlight hour, I can probably catch like, three, maybe 350. 6,000.
That is a lot.
Yeah,
That is a lot.
that's tough.
I
And
caught
That's
then
insane.
I spent a lot of those 6,000 Pokemon making my Ultra League pilot swan. I really regret it.
Yeah.
So
oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
See? And even like a transfer mechanic, like if you could transfer a Pokemon away that you invested Stardust and Candy into, even if you got like 50% back or 25% back out of the transfer, that would help a lot. But I don't know.
Mhm.
The Stardust economy is really shot right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And you still play Master League for factions,
I
Matthew?
don't. I
Okay,
had to
okay.
back away from Master League the moment
It's
they allowed
expensive.
legendaries. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's another aspect too, because the XLs for the legendaries too. It's just there's really no shortcut too, right? You can't really walk a Mewtwo. You gotta. Well, I guess you could, but most of the time you're raiding or trading for them, and it's a lot of XLs for all these
Mhm.
things. So it's yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'd be happy to revisit maybe the third or fourth time you're on this podcast. by then we'll have level 60 around.
Oh
Oh
my
that's
gosh.
when
no.
I'm
that's when we're
just
really
getting to level 50. They have to keep it around for just a little longer.
just a little longer.
Oh my
Yeah, because
gosh.
it was 5 years. It was around. It was a little under 5 years. It was like 4.5 years, I think. Wait, no, it was 3.5 years before they dropped level 50. Because then they drop at the end of 2020. Yeah, they dropped at end of 2020. Because I remember I wasn't like taking it seriously, and then all of a sudden I'm like, dang, I need to go to
Mhm.
EV Nest for this Umbreon.
Dude, whenever people mention like level 60, level 70, it's like this really upsetting joke, right? For example, my brother will send me these memes sometimes, reminding me of how old we are,
Uh
right?
huh.
He sent me this one meme, it had like Skeletor on it, and Skeletor was laughing, and it said, "We are now closer to 2050 than we are to 1980." And then Skeletor like runs away. And I'm like, damn it. I know I'm getting older, but like, come on. And then you
No.
mentioned level 60, and I'm like, damn it. I do
Mhm.
not want to spend that much Stardust in something for level 60.
Yeah. I'm still egging for friendship, and I still do. This might sound cringe to you too, but I still do mass evolutions. Like I'll tag my
Oh my
Pidgeys and
goodness.
Pidovs and stuff, and
It's very cringe.
Whismers.
That's from the
I have a
past.
tag, and like when I egg with someone. 30 minutes after, I'm still evolving. Right, I'm maximizing. I mean, what do I
I
do with all these Pidgey candies? Right? Yeah.
I recently got back into the habit of opening gifts
Uh huh.
semi regularly,
Okay. Okay.
and I had a bunch of like getting close to ultra friends or best friends with a bunch of people. But then
Nice.
I realized, oh no, I have to coordinate, and I just completely
hmm
stopped, and then
It's a lot of
eventually
work.
gave up and was like, nicknamed my buddy, no
Yeah.
egg, just go for it.
Yeah,
It is
it's a lot
definitely
of
some
work.
work too. I will say though, a lot of people don't care about the experience as much these days. So there's like, yeah, just open whatever. I was like, thank you. I'll egg up. Don't mind me. I'm just evolving some Pidgeys here. Look, we'll reflect on this all in 3 years, and I'll be the last one laughing here, right? But yeah, that's we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I do agree with you. I think it's pushed out a lot of the spice picks. Like Shadow Bonnet has nowhere to go these days, right? Like back in the day, like you
Oh,
kind of make that work, but not as much, not as much. So we usually have like a tea segment. We call it "What's the tea?" Right? Usually something
oh,
more
okay,
controversial that's happened, stuff like that. Nothing, nothing wild has really happened in the recent week.
Yeah.
But I do remember reading this tweet from you actually, Matthew, back during the Arlington regional,
We got the
and
receipts.
we get the receipts. Well, we mentioned it before too, but I'd love to talk about it when you're here too. So it's a tweet that you posted back on December 23rd, 2022. And it was after Status and did this whole like dissertation of like the mechanics and everything, looking at the dispute that happened there and, latency and everything. And your tweet was personal hot take. I think the bar for disputing should be very high, and rematches should only be issued for clear and obvious circumstances, e.g., 2 seconds of lag and a spinning ball. If something takes frame by frame analysis to diagnose, it's probably not clear and obvious. And then you'll say at the highest levels of play, of course, the microsecond moments do matter. It's a process question of whether the player and judge experience is better by making them put the game under a microscope or having players assume a reasonable level of risk to accept most outcomes. Do you still, first off, do you still stand by what you said here? And I would love to hear your thoughts on why.
yes, I'll stand by those words.
Okay, nice.
I think, um, like, obviously, in a perfect setting, we would want the game to work flawlessly, frame by frame, no
Mhm.
issues whatsoever. And even with the issues that we do have, I know, like, when you're in that chair and you're at the highest levels of competition, like, of course, you're gonna want to look, uh, really closely at the game to make sure everyone's getting a fair shot. I think from a um, looking at the tournament experience, the broadcast experience, just from an entertainment standpoint, from a process standpoint of making sure things are running smoothly, and the casters don't have to buy half an hour of time for um, a dispute or whatever. Um, just keeping the bar for that higher, so that um, the whole thing doesn't grind to a halt
Mhm.
in certain situations.
Yeah. I think when we brought this up a few weeks ago on the podcast too, I also agree with your approach too, because it's kind of also like uh like ever it's going to happen in your favor and against you, right? And so like it all kind of evens out sometimes as well. And obviously I think most people, when they're affected by this, they always think about when it affects them, but I know plenty of times I've probably won games I probably shouldn't have because of certain little micro lags or a turn going through, or stuff like that. And yeah, I personally just take it with a grain of salt, unless it's like a very obvious lag situation, right? Like just like one turn thinking through. Like sometimes it could change the outcome of the match, but like that's gonna happen across the board, I think. What was your thoughts on this, Speedy? I can't remember.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back to the conversation. It's tough because it's not like so the first thing that came to mind for me was instant replay in sports like football, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you have the analysts actually watching back the footage, and the quote that they always say is that you need clear and indisputable evidence to overturn the call that's already been made,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you call no catch, when you watch that replay back, you need to clearly see the catch being filled, right? And when we look at here at this as well, like I think Pokemon Go, because it's so turn based, it almost feels like it doesn't belong in that category because 3 turns here, 3 turns there, charge move there,
Mm-hmm.
swap here. Everything is like on this grid of turns, so it doesn't feel like there's as much of like a human factor here. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
feel like, oh, his toe barely touched the line. Like you should be able to tell what should have happened throughout the game based on the turn cycles. So it's hard for me to say, to be honest, but I feel like, yeah, the disputes are hard. I feel like in general we need a better system of like explaining the disputes, because I think if we actually explain them better to the viewers, and we can actually illustrate better what's going on, and it would also help people to learn about how the game actually works as well. And I think we could turn it into an educational opportunity.
Yeah. I also too, I don't know if either of you two know this, and I might, this might not even be accurate, but I believe when this all happened, a lot of people were really studying the footage, and it might have been even before this. I think it stemmed from Adib Khan, who did what used to be called Project Guki and now is called Project Frontier and whatever. But definitely big on the mechanics. And he was saying that when he was looking at all these, like the how the mechanics work and everything, he said that he discovered that Pokemon Go PvP is not actually turn based. um I forgot exactly what he said, so this sounds like really weird. But like it's something to do with like it's like some time based thing, I guess, or like tap input something.
Yeah.
um
Well, a turn is also time locked, right? A turn is a half second. So you can look at it in terms of time or as in terms of turns. But if everyone's like tapping their screen the whole time, then theoretically, at least Kakuna, you probably know this better than almost anyone. It should actually progress along the same track. You're just like taking steps at different intervals. Like a 5 step, or 5 turn
yes.
incinerate is 5 steps. One dragon breath at a time is 5 little steps, right? But you're still like moving along the same track. Is that accurate?
I think what we saw a lot of surrounding that particular dispute from Status 10 and Adib Khan
Mhm.
was that um, there's maybe potential for things to happen um, at different times in that half-second interval that um, like
Could
I
like
know.
stagger the alignment of certain things.
Yeah, I think that's particularly what Status 10 was interested in analyzing of, oh, what if you stop tapping for like
A quarter
a
second.
quarter, yeah, a quarter of a second, how does that
Mhm.
change things? And
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't know the answer to that. Um, but yeah, it's super it's super
Granular,
in
right?
depth and granular, and
Yeah. I also
I
might be
think
misquoting what Adib said to me. I just remember when he said to me, he made it seem like it was like a huge revelation. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like there is no spoon. But I was like, well, I don't know. I'm holding a fork, but
Just get a spork.
yeah,
Yeah,
some health issues.
Galarian Alakazam.
Yeah,
Yes.
The
yeah,
spork.
yeah. I think yeah. Again, like I think again, I always default to sometimes like knowing too much about mechanics really gets people down. Like I think like ignorance is definitely bliss at times. I think for those that really understand mechanics, they see like they're like there's like a missing one turn or half turn here, and that could have changed the whole match, right? And I'm just like, dude, I was like, maybe, but like you want to study every single match like this, like you're gonna find something, right? I think like Waller was very big in mechanics, but I think like that was also his downfall is he knew
It's
so much.
exhausting.
It was exhausted.
Yeah.
He was always so frustrated,
Yeah.
and I get it. I could maybe I don't fully get it, but I could understand why because he sees everything, he just can't unsee it, and it's just like
Mhm.
it's just like it could be frustrating, right? Which might have led to him taking a step back from the game because of
Yeah.
it. Well, he actually
And
said
that
that's why. Yeah.
this is also like 100% the case with Dunebug. If you compare like last season to this season,
Mm-hmm.
the reason Dunebug had so many disputes is because he saw all the inconsistencies in the
Yeah.
game and he called them out actively because
Yeah.
the game should work to a certain level, and if it didn't work to that level, it like threw a wrench into everything, right? Into all his expectations about how
Mm-hmm.
the match would go. Then it became like a question of fairness in his mind, and not everyone saw it that same way,
Yeah.
and I think that's why it was so divisive. So like,
Mhm.
man, why is this guy like creating a big fuss over one snarl? But in his mind, like you pointed out earlier, Caleb, this one micro turn could have changed everything that could have won
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
match. Some people believe that, right? And like the thing is, like Doonbug was the first trainer to come along and have that kind of confidence and that kind of knowledge in the same kind of package, but he's not the last. We're going to see
No.
lots of trainers who come in and think they know the game down to like the cellular level. And we're going to have a better system for disputes because those people are not just going to stop coming to tournaments, right? Somebody is always going to arrive that has a similar mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
Doombuck definitely he understand mechanic. I mean, his confidence levels were very high too, though. I think some of those
Super high.
disputes, like he wasn't wrong about like a missing turn, but like I was like, you don't beat this alone Ninetales, Charm alone
It
Ninetales
was
with
like
the with the Umbreon because you missed a snarl. But yeah,
Caleb level confidence with also like the not giving a crap about what people thought and was just like going to go
and
after it no
understand
matter what.
mechanics. Yeah, it's a good thing I don't know
Yes.
the mechanics. Otherwise, I'd probably be doing
See?
the same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I
but
definitely think you want to set up the players for success and the
mhm.
judges for success,
Yeah,
and keep the stream and the tournament moving. So that's kind of why I'm on the side of the fence of keeping disputes the bar
yeah,
higher.
I feel you.
Yeah. Indisputable video evidence, right?
Yeah. One question for both of you. I'm curious on how you all think on this. In Sylph right now, especially in factions, they have these things called def wins, definitive wins, essentially. Where if let's say it's like I let's say it's the bug where we come in, shields are down both sides. I have a move on like my Trevenant, like a Shadow Ball, and you have like an Ice Punch on Medi, and both would knock out. The Shadow Ball should obviously come through, but the charging button doesn't come through, and the Medi takes out my Trevenant, right? Any other situation where if it works properly, the Shadow Ball KOs the Medicham, GG's. In factions now, when you have those situations and you can prove that it should have been a win for the Trevenant user, they don't replay. They just give a win to the Trevenant user, even though in the actual practice the Medicham user won, right? So I'm gonna reposition my cat real quick here. So I don't think that's definitely not a rule in play Pokemon right now. We actually saw that in San Diego where Gucci Gang, instead of getting a def win, he had to rematch the game, right? Um, which he did end up winning the rematch, but like it's just like in some ways like do you really need to play out the rematch, right? At that point.
Mhm.
So what are your two thoughts on def wins, especially on the big play Pokemon stage?
Hmm.
For some
I
like obvious def like situation like that, right? Like the
yeah,
charging button doesn't come up. Yeah.
I think in principle I agree. If you're in an end game situation where you 100% know what the outcome should be,
Hmm.
100%, and it doesn't happen for whatever technical reason, I think that's um, I think you would have to limit it to like exactly that scenario,
Yeah.
or like I don't know if someone is like, oh, my charge move should have done enough to KO and it didn't, and they like missed a bubble or something, then
Yeah.
that's probably not a situation where
Yeah,
you'd
that's
award
on
that.
them.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate
Okay.
here. I'm actually going to take the opposite side. And the reason I'm doing it is because of the most recent regional,
Mhm.
where we saw Rise with an obvious win condition, and he pressed Shadow Ball instead of the Sky Attack. So there's still a degree of human error. So even if you say, okay, I'm going to come in with Trevenant, I have a Shadow Ball, I win CMP,
Yeah.
the Metacham is half health, there's still a degree of human error where you can press the Seed Bomb on accident.
No, if you press the
So
C bomb, that's fine. No, that's not a death win though, because he pressed the shadow ball. That wasn't
no.
a
What
game
I'm saying,
glitch,
like,
right?
if the charge moves, the argument is that if the charge buttons don't show up, then
Oh,
do I award
I
a def win?
see.
But how do you
Oh.
know it's a def win for sure if somebody is like stressed and panicking and presses the wrong button, right? And then I thought, well, maybe a shield should be a def win. And what I mean by that is if a charge attack goes through a protect shield, maybe that should be a definite win, right? Because
Oh,
that's
okay.
obviously
Too late.
a game breaking error. But then I thought, what if they weren't sure if they could survive the attack and they actually no shielded or they pressed the shield on accident, and there's still human error there, right?
Yeah, or like
So
super
can
late
you
and
super late and they don't know if it went through or not? So how can you
Yeah.
say definitively, no matter what, that they would have won? I don't think there's a way.
Interesting. Yeah. Next time someone disputes me in factions, you're like, I definitely should have won that. I was like, man, I didn't know you were. You could have easily thrown a shadow ball at my Noctowl instead of Sky Attack. Rice did it, right? That would frustrate my
Dude,
opponent so much.
there you go. Make a mauled. Yeah, but seriously, it's a good point, I think.
Yeah, actually, you know what? That is an interesting point. You're not wrong. That was
Human error.
we talked about it last week, but that was definitely an interesting moment in the tournament for sure. That was
Poor Rice, man.
yeah, it was tough. It's great content, but it was unfortunate, very unfortunate for him.
I saw
Okay,
the
interesting. Yeah.
screenshot on Twitter afterward of his 2 different Noctowls.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. It happens. It happens. Yeah, I guess okay, I like that. I never thought about it from that way, Speedy, but I'm probably still leaning on the side of def wins here. But well, you
Mhm.
could also see like on the screen, that if which side they're trying to tap on, I guess,
That
right? A lot
that
of times, yeah,
that thank you. You read
yeah,
my mind. I think that's the only way
yeah,
the judge would have to see where the trainer was
hmm
tapping
yeah,
on the screen at a high level, not even
hmm
just like, oh, they had their hand there or they didn't have their hand there. They'd have to
yeah,
know what side the finger was on
yeah,
and if they're actively tapping or if they switch sides. So like
yeah.
even to that degree, I think, and this is something I really love to see as well, is an overhead camera on the competitors. So you can see them
Oh,
both tapping on their screen like from the overhead
okay,
angle. That'd be cool.
okay. I like that. I
I
like
like
that.
that, yeah.
Wow. Okay. So some upgrade tech. We'll let
Big tech.
I'll hit up some staff members at the Pokemon company and be like, Speedy wants to purchase some cameras.
I do. I
Yeah.
want the corkscrew camera that was on TCG at LAIC. So many acronyms. Trading card game at Latin American International Championships. When the game started, it like corkscrewed down and like focused on the players.
Oh,
That was
that's pretty
Oh,
cool.
cool. I mean, they kind of
fancy.
need
That
the
was neat.
aerial view for their game, right?
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
But that's pretty dope. Okay, I like it. I like it. Um, yeah. Wow, you really played devil's advocate on that one.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man.
um. Anyway, we talked about a lot here today, but I'm curious. Any future projects you have in store for us, Mr. PvPoke, or that you can share,
Ooh.
or any things you're working on, or
Oh,
I mean, the
goodness.
website rate works
Uh,
great, so like I don't even like. I feel like PvPoke is like because the last time we had you on was 2 years ago. I feel like so much has changed on the website that I don't even notice unless I go back. It's kind of like when you look at old
Yes.
screenshots of Pokemon Go, or like it's just
Yes.
like a screenshot. Like it's like all the text looks different. It like looks really wonky, right? And you don't even
Yeah.
see how smooth it looks now. I have an old clip of when I was battling in 2019 in Kingdom Cup. So I was battling with my
Yeah.
teammates, and I was just kind of like talking smack to him. I was like, dude, you lost Celix into my Bastion because you double baited Crunch, right? And yeah, it was not a good time for him. But I was like, if I find this clip, like you had to do something with our like upcoming jersey, right? And I found the clip, I shared it with my teammates, and the gameplay looks so wonky. Like you don't even believe how
Yeah.
choppy it looks. Like I was
It's
just like, how
silly.
did like if I'm watching it right now, I'd be like, I can't even tell if there's inconsistency in gameplay because everything looks so choppy, right? For like phasing in and out. But I feel like
Yeah.
I'm not saying PvPoke ever looked like that, but I feel like there were probably little changes in the past 2 years that I wasn't even fully aware of. But any future developments that you have in mind that you could share with us?
Ooh, the challenge is I am a super like impulse driven um person.
Oh,
So
really? Okay.
I don't have like there isn't a PvPoke roadmap
Mhm.
or anything like that. It's just I wake up
It,
some morning and decide, hey, I'm gonna work on this today. And that's how stuff gets done. Uh,
Okay.
inspiration strikes.
so let's see, what do I have? What do I have cooking right now?
Let him cook.
Yeah, let them cook.
um, one thing I need to do is rework the how the data for the training analysis top performers
Mm,
teams gets stored. And when I do that, I right now it's all manual work of going in and pulling the data and then putting it together on the page. It's a great process. Um, but I think I can set up a more automated system so there's more fluid um, stats and numbers and things like that. So that's
Nice.
kind of um, shorter, shorter term
mhm.
next project, I think.
Cool.
Um,
So, Cocoon, I have a question for you
mhm.
related to development. This isn't this doesn't have to be directly Pokemon related. I think this is more of like a software product development mindset that you have. But I feel like you're always tweaking, adding new things on, making these minor adjustments, and always trying to improve PvPoke to make it usable, to make it accessible, to make it actually look good as well. And I'm just wondering, like, where does that mindset come from? And how do you continually apply it? You know what it almost feels like? It almost feels like you work in technology and you work for a company that designs really nice products, and you're always like pushing the envelope a little bit more, just trying to upgrade here or there and keep things like fresh and fun. Can you speak like just a little bit about that? Or is that all impulse driven as well?
That is in fact my day job. Yeah,
Okay.
I do web development, and I think a huge factor and motivation here is getting to connect with you guys and the Twitter community and um, people asking questions of, hey, what if this was like that? Or, um, sharing bugs or battle sim errors. And um, I always have a very healthy list of things I need to fix or change. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah.
You have a community feedback loop that is actually like very active, and you take a lot of feedback and you incorporate it, which I think is amazing, right?
Yeah. No one ever talks poorly of PvPoke.
No, I never
Yeah.
heard anyone say a bad thing ever.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
almost suspicious.
Uh
That's true. Yeah, he's
oh.
feeding us Kool-Aid we don't even know about.
I know. Like what does he have on us? Does he have some blackmail on us that we just don't know?
Yeah,
uh,
it's kind of a I don't know. I will say I haven't like I know a lot of people have asked for like an app or
Sure.
things like that, and like Caleb was saying, the site has been pretty much like largely the same for the past however many years.
Mhm.
But just making tweaks and features and fixes and that sort of thing. So I
Mhm.
haven't like completely gone back to the drawing board and here's PvPoke 2. Um, but I've learned a lot about like work-life balance and
Mhm.
how to keep PvPoke manageable for myself,
Mhm.
which has been
Mhm.
a struggle at times, and making sure I don't burn out. And
Yes.
yeah,
That's awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, in my opinion, I wouldn't even know what to change with it, right? I think it
Yeah.
covers everything we look for, and it's still like honestly, on my browser history, it's probably still the website I go to the most, like
Yeah.
oh, that's
on
awesome.
a weekly basis. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's incredible. But anyway, thank you for taking the time to be a part of the guest. We covered a lot of things. Is there anything that you would like to share that we didn't get to touch on? I mean, we have time here too, but
Ooh,
it's up to you if there's anything you want to share.
let's see. I did this week just finish putting it together a bookcase that'll be a nice Pokemon plushie
Ooh,
spot.
okay.
So
Let's go.
we've got Empoleon up there. We've got
Nice.
Altaria and Torchic so far. So we'll have
Any
to build that out.
Kakunas?
I do have a Kakuna packed away
Oh, okay.
somewhere.
Nice.
Nice.
um, yeah, I think it was. Wait, wasn't it? Wasn't it you, Speedy? Um,
I might have got
yeah, you might
sent
have
you something.
contributed to that
Yeah.
collection a bit.
Yeah.
I know your
Maybe.
favorite Pokemon are Kakuna, Empoleon, and a Flygon here or there. I know the
Flygon.
Flygon
Yes,
makes appearance for a while. Yeah, I'm
yes,
just
I love
surprised you don't have a
Flygon.
Flygon username yet, but maybe the pun's coming soon.
Ooh, somewhere, yeah.
Yeah.
Let Flygons be Flygons.
That might hit the character limit, but that's a pretty good one. I give it to you. Yeah. Well, hopefully, if you
Flygon
do go to
Jin.
Japan, go with an empty suitcase. So you could fill up the bookcase, with more
Yeah,
stuff.
Absolutely.
exactly. Well, Kakuna, how can we support you? I mean, Caleb and I go to your website all the time. On my Android,
Yes.
I actually have your web page as like its own app. So I just like click the web page
Oh,
app
Oh, that's
that is a
awesome.
great pro tip. I
and
didn't even think about that. Yeah.
I just go there all the time. I watch all your ads. Sometimes I click on them and I watch them.
He has a
How else can we
Patreon.
support?
He
He
has a
does have a
Patreon.
Patreon.
Yes.
How how can we get involved?
Oh, well, thank you so much. And um, just inviting me to chat like this is awesome. I love getting to connect with you guys. And I will say, like, one part of like being involved in the community is always for me is always kind of a feeling of being stretched thin of like I interact with a lot of different parts of the community,
Mhm.
but it's tough to feel like um, there's always that imposter syndrome of, oh, who am I really talking to enough that, you know, because I'm a person who likes like deep personal connections, and getting to spend Friday evening chatting with you guys is an awesome way to feel fulfilled and have fun. And
Awesome.
yeah, so thanks for having me on.
I mean,
Aw,
thank you for
shucks.
spending your Friday evening with us. Yeah, especially last minute. I literally DM'd Matthew last night. I was like, "Hey, you want to be on the podcast again sometime? Like maybe tomorrow, the day after tomorrow." But so I appreciate you even coming to chat with us too, because it's always a
Yeah.
good time. And I said this before. I'll always say it too. I think there's two things, right? One is I think most people universally would agree that the one person that's made the most impact in PvP is still you, Matthew, for not only your
Oh,
website but just for your resources and everything over
Yes.
since the beginning of PvP time, really. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
maybe you didn't have the website up in the first week of PvP, but it was pretty much up in like a month or so. So it came
Yeah.
pretty quick.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I always say is, like it could have gone really poorly if you were, someone that was like really looking out to like, for personal gain and stuff, and screwing us over with like maybe like 20 ads on each simulation page, like popping up and stuff, looking like viruses, and
Yeah.
and
Exactly.
you had the ego to match that kind of energy. But
Yeah.
instead, I think you're one of the nicest people in the community, and uh,
oh, well, thank
that's
you.
probably why no one really complains about the website, because you just put so much time and effort into it
Mhm.
to make it good for everyone, and don't really ask for much in return. So again, for those that are listening, if you'd like to support PvPoke, there's a lot of ways. Go to the website, click on the ads if you like, but also he has a Patreon page as well, and uh, maybe get him some Flygon plushies. All this. Yeah, maybe you have too much Flygon. We gotta like space it out properly.
I do need
Um,
one. I do need one. So
okay,
I'm keeping my eye
Okay.
out.
okay,
Noted.
I like it. I like it. Um, but anyway, thank you for joining in, and hopefully, we'll see you maybe on the big stage at Milwaukee.
Ooh.
If you if you win a tournament with a Kakuna on your team, then I think that'll go down in history.
That'd be
Right?
something. I'm still waiting for Little Jungle Cup to come back because I have a best buddy level 50 Kakuna that I want to put to the
Wait,
test.
what? So wait,
Oh my
what
goodness.
CP does that even hit?
492.
Oh, okay.
Woo!
Okay, nice.
Let's
You know, if
go.
I saw that, I wouldn't even know what moves it learns. I'd be like, I'd be on PvPoke actually while facing you. That's what I do a lot of times when I don't know what someone has. I'm just like
Oh
looking up,
yeah.
like, what does this thing even have?
But
Yeah,
yeah. During the charge move mini game, I'm like, wait, what does Spindo learn again? You know?
yeah, right. Yeah, that's the real kicker. The last time I faced Matthew in a friendly battle, best of 3, it came down to game 3. I had to cheese him a little bit and use double Bastion to win.
Yes, that was sneaky. That was sneaky.
Yeah. I was like, he's
Wow.
not going to see this coming. It always feels weird to safe swap a Bastion into a Como O, though. I was like, this is
Yeah,
my
it's
safe
brutal.
swap. Yeah. I was like, I don't have any other
Komo can
option.
take on one Bastiodon.
Yeah.
Two is a
See,
little
the
much.
second one is where it comes as a surprise. I saved the XL for the end too. You know, the first one's the non-XL. But anyway, that wraps up for us. So thank you again so much for joining us. I hope people enjoyed this guest episode, and I cannot wait to grill Butters on this like always denial shenanigans
Oh,
he's pushing. So
here we
stay
go.
tuned for that one. But that's episode
Look forward
86
to it.
for us. We're recording this on February 10th, 2023. Almost 2 years from the last time we had Kakuna on here. Who knows what will happen the next time we have him on here? Level 60? I warned you all. Y'all laughed at me for evolving these Pidgeys on a Lucky Egg, but I warned you all when it's a billion XP for level 60.
Yeah, I've
Never.
got to pick up my mass evolution game.
exactly. Just tag him. That's great. But yeah, I hope y'all take care, and we'll catch y'all next time. Peace.